Hello everybody and welcome back. My name's Sascha Cooper and today we continue the tale of Toomai of the Elephants from the Jungle Book by Rudyard Kipling. Now when we last left this tale, little Toomai was about to meet his hero, Peterson Sahib. Shall we see what happens next? Now Peterson Sahib had ears all over him, as a man must have who listens to the most silent of all living things, the wild elephant. He turned where he was lying all along on Pudmini's back and said, "What is that? I did not know of a man among the plains drivers who had wit enough to rope even a dead elephant." "This is not a man, but a boy. He went into the keddah at the last drive and threw Barmayo there the rope when we were trying to get that young calf with the blotch on his shoulder away from his mother." Matra Appa pointed at little Toomai, and Peterson Sahib looked, and little Toomai bowed to the earth. "He threw a rope. He is smaller than a picket pin." "Little one, what is thy name?" said Peterson Sahib. Little Toomai was too frightened to speak, but Kala Nag was behind him, and Toomai made a sign with his hand, and the elephant caught him up in his trunk and held him up level with Pudmini's forehead, in front of the great Peterson Sahib. Then little Toomai covered his face with his hands, for he was only a child, and except where elephants were concerned, he was just as bashful as a child could be. "Oh," said Peterson Sahib, smiling underneath his big moustache, "and why didst thou teach thy elephant that trick? Was it to help thee steal green corn from the roofs of the houses when the ears are put out to dry?" "Not green corn, protector of the poor. Melons," said little Toomai, and all the men sitting about broke into a roar of laughter. Most of them had taught their elephants that trick when they were boys. Little Toomai was hanging 8 feet up in the air, and he wished very much he were 8 feet underground. "He is Toomai, my son, Sahib," said Big Toomai, scowling. "He is a very bad boy, and he will end in a jail, Sahib." "Of that I have my doubts," said Peterson Sahib. "A boy who can face a full keddah at his age does not end in jails. See, little one, there are 4 annas to spend in sweetmeats, because thou hast a little head under that great thatch of hair. In time thou mayest become a hunter too." Big Toomai scowled more than ever. "Remember, though, that keddahs are not good for children to play in," Peterson Sahib went on. "Must I never go there, Sahib?" asked little Toomai with a big gasp. "Yes," Peterson Sahib smiled again. "When thou hast seen the elephants dance, that is the proper time. Come to me when thou hast seen the elephants dance, and then I will let thee go into all the keddahs." There was another roar of laughter, for that is an old joke among elephant catchers, and it means just never. There were great cleared flat places hidden away in the forest that are called elephants' ballrooms, but even these are only found by accident, and no man has ever seen the elephants dance. When a driver boasts of the skill and bravery, the other drivers say, "And when didst thou see the elephants dance?" Kala Nag put little Toomai down, and he bowed to the earth again, and went away with his father, and gave the silver 4 anna piece to his mother, who was nursing his baby brother, and they were all put up on Kala Nag's back, and the line of grunting, squealing elephants rolled down the hill path to the plains. It was a very lively march on account of the new elephants, who gave trouble at every ford, and needed either coaxing or beating every other minute. Big Toomai prodded Kala Nag spitefully, for he was very angry. But little Toomai was too happy to speak. Peterson Sahib had noticed him and given him money, so he felt as a private soldier would feel if he had been called out of the ranks and praised by his commander-in-chief. What did Peterson Sahib mean by "The elephant dance," he said at last, softly to his mother. Big Toomai heard him and grunted. "That thou should never be one of these hill buffaloes of trackers, that was what he meant. Oh, you in front, what is blocking the way?" An Assamese driver, 2 or 3 elephants ahead, turned round angrily, crying, "Bring up Kala Nag and knock this youngster of mine into a good behaviour. Why should Peterson Sahib have chosen me to go down with you donkeys of the rice fields? Lay your beast alongside Toomai and let him prod with his trunks. By all the gods of these hills, these new elephants are possessed, or else they can smell their companions in the jungle." Kala Nag hit the new elephant in the ribs and knocked the wind out of him, as Big Toomai said, "We have swept the hills of wild elephants at the last catch. It is only your carelessness in driving. Must I keep order along the whole line?" "Oh, hear him," said the other driver. "We have swept the hills." "You are very wise, you plains people. Anyone but a mudhead who never saw the jungle would know that the drives are ended for the season. Therefore all the wild elephants tonight will. But why should I waste wisdom on a river turtle?" "What will they do?" Little Toomai called out. "Oh, little one, art thou there? Well, I will tell thee, for thou hast a cool head. They will dance, and it behooves thy father, who has swept all the hills of the elephants, to double chain his pickets tonight." "What talk is this?" said Big Toomai. "For 40 years, father and son, we have tended elephants, and we have never heard such moonshine about dances." "Yes, but a plainsman who lives in a hut knows only the 4 walls of his hut. Well, leave thy elephants unshackled tonight and see what comes. As for their dancing, I have seen the place where— Babri, Bab, how many windings does the Diang River have? Here's another ford, and we must swim the calves. Stop still, you behind there!" And in this way, talking and wrangling and splashing through the rivers, they made their first march to a sort of receiving camp for the new elephants. But they lost their tempers long before they got there. Then the elephants were chained by their hind legs to their big stumps of pickets, and extra ropes were fitted to the new elephants, and the fodder was piled before them, and the hill drivers went back to Peterson Sahib through the afternoon light, telling the plains drivers to be extra careful that night, and laughing when the plains drivers asked the reason. Little Toomai attended to Kala Nag's supper, and as evening fell, wandered through the camp, unspeakably happy, in search of a tom-tom. When an Indian's child's heart is full, he does not run about and make a noise in an irregular fashion. He sits down to a sort of revel, all by himself. And little Toomai had been spoken to by Peterson Sahib. If he had not found what he wanted, I believe he would have been ill. But the sweetmeat seller in the camp lent him a little tom-tom, a drum beaten with the flat of a hand, and he sat down, cross-legged, before Kala Nag, as the stars began to come out, the tom-tom in his lap, and he thumped, and he thumped, and he thumped, and the more he thought of the great honour that had been done to him, the more he thumped, all alone among the elephant fodder. There was no tune and no words, but the thumping made him happy. The new elephants strained at their ropes and squealed and trumpeted from time to time, and he could hear his mother in the camp hut putting his small brother to sleep with an old song about the great god Shiv, who once told all the animals what they should eat. It is a very soothing lullaby, and the first verse says, "Shiv, who poured the harvest and made the winds to blow, sitting at the doorways of a day of long ago, gave to each his portion, food and toil and fate, from the king upon the goodee to the beggar at the gate. All things made he, Shiva the preserver, Mahadeo, Mahadeo. He made all, thorn for the camel, fodder for the keen, and mother's heart for Sleepyhead, O little son of mine. Little Toomai came in with a joyous tunk-a-tunk at the end of each verse, till he felt sleepy and stretched himself on the fodder at Kala Nag's side. At last, the elephants began to lie down as one after another, as is their custom, till only Kala Nag, at the right of the line, was left standing up, and he rocked slowly from side to side, his ears put forward to listen to the night wind as it blew very slowly across the hills. The air was full of all the night noises that taken together make one big silence, the click of one bamboo stem against the other, the rustle of something alive in the undergrowth, the scratch and squawk of a half-waked bird. Birds are awake in the night much more often than we imagine, and the fall of water ever so far away. Little Toomai slept for some time, and when he waked, it was brilliant moonlight, and Kala Nag was still standing up with his ears cocked. Little Toomai turned, rustling in the fodder, and watching the curve of his big back against half the stars in heaven, and while he watched, he heard so far away that it sounded no more than a pinhole of noise pricked through the stillness, the hoot-toot of a wild elephant. All the elephants in the lines jumped up as if they had been shot, and their grunts at last waked the sleeping mahouts, and they came out and drove in the picket pegs with big mallets, and tightened this rope and knotted that, till all was quiet. One new elephant had nearly grubbed up his picket, and Big Toomai took off Kala Nag's leg chain and shackled that elephant forefoot to hindfoot, but slipped a loop of grass string around Kala Nag's leg, and told him to remember that he was tied fast. He knew that he and his father and his grandfather had done the very same thing hundreds of times before. Kala Nag did not answer to the order by gurgling as he usually did. He stood still, looking out across the moonlight, his head raised a little, and his ears spread like fans, up to the great folds of the Garo hills. "Tend to him if he grows restless in the night," said Big Toomai to Little Toomai, and went into his hut and slept. Little Toomai was just going to sleep too, when he heard the coir string snap with a little tang, and Kala Nag rolled slowly out of his pickets, as slow and as silently as a cloud rolls out of the mouth of a valley. Little Toomai pattered after him, barefoot, down the road in the moonlight, calling under his breath, "Kala Nag! Kala Nag! Take me with you, O Kala Nag!" The elephant turned without a sound, took 3 strides back to the boy in the moonlight, put down his trunk, swung him up to his neck, and almost before Little Toomai had settled his knees, slipped into the forest. There was one blast of furious trumpeting from the lines, and then the silence shut down on everything, and Kala Nag began to move. Sometimes a tuft of high grass washed along his sides as a wave washes along the sides of a ship, and sometimes a cluster of wild pepper vines would scrape along his back, or a bamboo would creak where his shoulder touched it. But between those times he absolutely moved without a sound, drifting through the thick Garo forest as though it had been smoke. He was going uphill, but though Little Toomai watched the stars in the rifts of the trees, he could not tell in what direction. And we're going to leave it there. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, what on earth is going on here? Is there going to be a meeting in the forest of elephants? And will there be even a dance? Is it a myth? Tune in tomorrow to find out what happens to Little Toomai and Kala Nag. My name's been Sascha Cooper, and this has been The Jungle Book by Rudyard Kipling. Take care, everybody, and stay safe. Bye-bye.